Hello and welcome to Transformation Talks. I'm your host, Julie, and today's episode is about something I see all the time in the people I work with and something I've personally lived. The hidden block, how trauma sabotages your business and career success. So let's dive in. When most people hear the word trauma, they think of physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, maybe car accidents, war, or natural disasters. What's commonly referred to as big T trauma. But trauma isn't always loud, obvious, or dramatic. In fact, some people laugh when they hear the word trauma. They think it's exaggerated or doesn't apply to them. And I'll admit, sometimes I smile a little when I hear that. Because often the ones who dismiss trauma the fastest are the ones who've lived through it the longest. They just didn't know to call it that. Because here's the truth. Sometimes trauma is quiet. It's subtle. It's the everyday moments that left a lasting emotional imprint. Experiences that shaped how you see yourself, what you believe you're capable of, and whether you feel safe to be seen, take risks, or even succeed. It might have been a parent who doubted your dreams, or growing up in a home where emotions weren't welcomed, only achievements. Maybe you were told to toughen up or constantly compared to other siblings or relatives. Maybe you never felt truly seen or validated for who you are. Or it could have been a teacher who said something like, "You're just not good enough." I once had a client, let's call her Rose, who remembered a moment in the hallway at school. A teacher, not even her own, looked at her and said, "You won't do well academically, Rose. You should think about dancing instead." Just a throwaway comment, right? But decades later, that moment still plays in her mind, shaping how she saw herself, her intelligence, her worth, and what she thought she could achieve and was capable of. And these are what we often refer to as small T traumas. But honestly, I don't think trauma should be ranked as big or small. If it left a mark, if it shaped how you see yourself or created patterns of fear, self-doubt, or playing small, it's trauma and it matters. So let me share a bit about my own story. I used to second guess myself constantly. On the outside, I looked successful, put together, multiple degrees, achievements, a driven personality. But behind that was someone who was burning out, pushing herself too hard and secretly feeling like she never measured up. I procrastinated. I avoided opportunities where I might be seen or judged. And I compared myself. I overworked and nothing ever felt like enough. Why? Because deep down, I had internalized beliefs from childhood, beliefs that I wasn't enough, too much, or that if I made a mistake, I'd be humiliated. And those weren't just mindset blocks. They were trauma patterns formed from early experiences that taught me it wasn't safe to be fully me. And I only started to truly thrive when I healed those old beliefs at the root with rapid transformational therapy, RTT for short. Honestly, in the first 2 years of starting my business, I played small. I didn't feel ready or qualified enough, especially because I told myself I wasn't a psychologist or psychiatrist. I felt like an imposter despite all my training and lived experience. But today, that thought doesn't even cross my mind because the work that I do hasn't just transformed my own life. It's changed the lives of clients who had seen psychologists and psychiatrists for years, sometimes decades, without lasting healing or change. And yes, some of my clients are medical professionals themselves, doctors, nurses, psychiatrists, people who were trained in the very systems that couldn't help them fully heal. Now, no shade to their training. It's not their fault. They were taught that their approach is the gold standard and often the only way that works. But I've learned, experienced, and witnessed that true healing requires us to go deeper, to address the root cause, to work with the subconscious mind where 95% of our thoughts, behaviors, and emotions live, and where whatever we feel about ourselves is also emotionally conditioned to our body. That's the power of this work. And that's exactly what I help my clients do, especially those in business or high pressure careers. Because when trauma is left unresolved, it doesn't just stay in the past. it shapes your present. It affects how visible you allow yourself to be and how safe you feel to speak up, how confident you are to lead, and how much success you believe you deserve. But it doesn't just stop there. Your trauma spills into your relationships with your colleagues, your employees, with clients, even loved ones. So think about the boss who micromanages every detail. Is it just a control freak personality? Or could it be unresolved trauma whispering, if I don't manage everything, I'll just be judged as incompetent and I'll be rejected or abandoned? The thing is, it has nothing to do with you, but everything to do with how they feel about themselves. Or what about the colleague who's constantly in competition, never able to celebrate anyone else's success? Is it ambition or survival mode? And often that kind of behavior stems from a deep belief that they're not enough unless they're constantly proving their worth. And that belief probably started in childhood when their success was always measured against someone else's, or they were never acknowledged for who they truly were. And this need to win isn't about confidence, it's about fear. It's about trying to outrun the pain of being overlooked, dismissed, or made to feel small. Or maybe, just maybe, that colleague is you. Now, no judgment here. I say this with compassion because awareness is the first step to healing. When you understand that these aren't just personality quirks, but patterns rooted in trauma, everything starts to make sense. And what about the brilliant employee who never speaks up in meetings? Are they just shy, or are they afraid their voice doesn't matter? That if they speak, they'll be judged, embarrassed, or rejected. And again, maybe that's you. These patterns aren't random, they're protective. But what once protected you is now limiting you. And it's time for you to break free. Because healing your trauma doesn't just stop the past from controlling you, it creates new space for confidence, for visibility, for clarity, and for growth. Imagine what could shift in your career, your business, your relationships if you weren't constantly fighting invisible barriers. And that's why I created Transform and Thrive in 12, a one-on-one personalized RTT and coaching program for business owners, entrepreneurs, and professionals who are ready to finally break through the blocks and not just grow, but thrive. So if you're ready to reclaim your confidence, your calm, and your clarity, head to the link in the show notes to learn more about the program and how it might just change everything for you. So before we go, I invite you to ask yourself, what's one way I might be holding back? Not because I can't, but because some part of me learned it wasn't safe to shine. Sit with that. You might be surprised at what comes up. And if there's one thing I hope you take from today's episode, it's this. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not unmotivated or weak. You're just responding to beliefs that were formed long ago. And it's absolutely possible to rewire those at the root. So thank you so much for being here with me today on Transformation Talks. If this resonated, share it with someone you love, and don't forget to subscribe for more episodes like this one. Until next time, catch you in the next episode.